So now it's really one report, one record all the time. Each report, of course, defines lines. So those lines are modeled with account report line objects. Those objects correspond to lines that will be rendered into the UI. And to know the values that will need to be displayed for these lines within the different columns of the report, there is an account report expression object. So this object is very special. You can see it as some kind of variable, you know. So you give it a name, which we call a label, you give it a formula, and you give it an engine to interpret this formula. And then you will have the account report column object, so one object per column to render, that will say, OK, in this column, I want expression label called, for example, balance. And so when rendering the report, the column will just say, OK, I look at all the lines, I'll pick the expression named balance on each of them, and I evaluate it and render it at the right place in the report, simply. So let's move on to some other basic concept that you need to know, or at least understand a little bit, to understand the rest of my talk, actually. So it's pretty important. It's the options dictionary. So if you happen to open accountreport.py, which I really encourage you to do, why not? And just browse the code, you will see that like 70 to 80% of the functions there take a parameter called options. Well, this parameter is actually super important. It's like the core of the report. Let's consider an example. Here you have the balance sheet. On top of it, you have the filters, right? To select the date, select the journals, these kind of things. And these filters, of course, are set by the user. So when interacting with the report, he says, OK, I want to filter on this, that, to open the report for this date, this date. This forms like some kind of state, you know, that with values that you need to provide to the engine to compute the report accordingly. Well, this state is what we call the options dict. So it's a dictionary containing a lot of keys, of course, corresponding to the different filters that you have on your report that are enabled and the values that were inputted into them. Also, some things about the display of your report, so the export buttons that you will show, this kind of thing. So everything that comes from configuration or direct interaction from the user is stored there. And it's a very central piece to the report. We will see how you can use it for customization afterwards. I still have one concept to explain first. It's the lines list. So what is that exactly? So I told you about the account report line objects, right? So obviously those lines, those objects are defined as data in XML files, like all the time in Odoo. Well, are these enough for what we need to do with the reports? Well, actually, let's consider again an example. So it's again the balance sheet here, but I unfolded the receivables line. And under this line, you can see that I have those what we call group by lines that have been created. So one line per account used in the receivables lines. If you're a developer, it's like a group by in SQL, right? And so, well, those lines come from data within the database. So they depend on the accounts that were used, on the entries that were created. And so basically, they cannot be defined in an XML file in the module because we don't know what they are at that time. They need to be computed on the fly. So that's why they are what we call dynamic lines. And so that's a problem, actually, because the report is rendered with a QWeb template, right? And so when rendering the template, you need to iterate on something and render it. And well, you can do that with account report line objects directly just because, well, you have the dynamic lines. And so you need something to mix both the report lines and the dynamic lines that got generated for them, put them together, and give that to the template. It's the lines list. So it's just a list of dictionary, one dictionary per line to display. And so some are generated from report lines, some are dynamic lines created for grouping and these kind of things. So that's the concept. Let's see how we can use it with customization. But first, how do you write customization? So you might think that when you need to customize anything in the report, you need to just override the account report model and just put, override a lot of functions and put if conditions everywhere, and just handle that like this and do the super call in your else clause. And if you have multiple multiple custom reports to do like that, do multiple overrides, do multiple if everywhere. If you do that, it will work, but it will be very, very painful to maintain. And believe me, because that's what we used to do before Odoo 16, and it's not good, really. So what we wanted to do when we refactored the model of the report, so in 16 there, we wanted to group all the custom code in a single place. So that's what the custom handler are doing. So account report custom handler is an abstract model. This abstract model is designed to contain all the custom code of one dedicated report. And well, basically you link it to the report in data, as you can see here with the general ledger, very simply like that. And so how does it work exactly? Well, the model, so the custom handler model, provides hooks, actually, that you can override to change various aspects of the computation of the report. So there are like a bit less than 10 hooks, if I remember well, in the file. I'm just going to explain the two main ones. But rest assured, they are all very well documented anyway, so you can just read the docstring yourself and understand it. I'm just going to give you the most important ones because they cover like 70 to 80% of the cases, so I think it's good. Let's start with the custom options initializer. So what is that? Well, I told you about the options dictionary, right? Well, the options dictionary, it is computed by a function called getOptions. This function, the last thing it does, just before returning its result, is actually, if there is a custom handler, to just call this custom handler and call the custom options initializer function by passing it the options dictionary that was computed as a parameter. And so, doing so, you can actually, within this hook, modify the options dictionary as you see fit to do, well, any kind of crazy things you want to do. So you could, for example, force a domain on the account move lines that are considered by the report. You could change the effect of some filters. You could use that to also add a filter of your own that is adding something and restricting the computation a bit more. So a lot of possibilities with that. And another use of that thing is, you know, those buttons on the top left corner of the report. So there is the PDF and Excel report there, but export there, but there are also sometimes custom buttons. Like, for example, here on all the tax reports, you have this closing entry button. How is that done? Because it only appears on tax reports, so it would seem legit to do that with some custom handler. It's just restricted to a subset of reports. We don't want that on every one of them. Well, it is indeed handled by a custom handler, and the way to do that is by overriding the custom options initializer. Because the options that are displayed there, the buttons that are displayed there, are handled by just an option key containing a list of dictionaries. These dictionaries have just, well, define the name of the button and define the action to call for this button, which is basically the name of a function on the custom handler. So basically, with just the custom options initializer and the custom handler, you can add any kind of buttons there that you want, and that's what we're doing with the closing entry. That's, I would say, one of the most typical use for that when you need to add some export file for some legal stuff, for example. Typically, you do that. So let's move on to the next hook I want to talk about. It's the dynamic lines generator. So I told you about the lines list at the beginning of the presentation. The lines list, basically, sometimes you want to forge it yourself, right? You might need something that is doing a lot of crazy computations, sometimes with models that are not part of the accounting, and you might want to write just the queries yourself from A to Z. And to do that, you need like a very, very manual way of doing that. That's the one. So basically, the dynamic lines generator allows you to forge the lines list directly. So of course, as I said, it's very manual. So I wouldn't advise you doing that unless you really need to, but you can do that and just create all the lines, all the dictionaries that goes into that list yourself. There are a bunch of helpers that can help you. There are examples in the code where we do that. Like, for example, in General Ledger, if you look at that report, actually all lines are dynamic because they all depend on the content of the database itself. And well, if you define that, the problem is that you will have to forge these lines, as I said, and take care of, consider a lot of various possible configurations, like for the comparisons. So you need to be very careful about a lot of things, but it works really well and it's super powerful, so it is there if you want to. But fortunately, there is another way to write custom code like that and really do your own computation within the report. It's what we call custom engines. So basically, I told you about the expression. I told you that the expressions, they define an engine with which their formula is going to be interpreted. So here, there is one of the values possible for that selection field that's called custom. If you said that, the formula of your expression is gonna is needs to be the name of a function on the custom handler, and this function, of course, needs to respect a specific signature, and actually it will be used as an engine. So I mean, just like the other standard engines within the framework of the reports, and that is very powerful, and we'll see why exactly. Because actually, with that, you're not generating the lines. You're generating values that will be used to generate the lines. So you don't need to care about forging any kind of lines for the lines list. Actually, you don't care about the lines list at all. You're just computing values, and that is it. So it's way, way, way simpler to do, and way, way, way safer to do as well for you. There is not, well, you don't have any big chances of doing big mistakes there that will break your report with certain configurations. Plus, if you do it well, because you will receive parameters for that in your custom engine function, you can also support the group by features natively, so the dynamic grouping that is done on the lines natively on your custom engine. So you could write one line with the custom engine and make it expandable with a group by, and the whole thing that will happen when you do that will be handled by Odoo and Odoo only, and so you won't have any code to write yourself for that. So pretty powerful again. And of course, the best thing about the custom engines is that they are an engine, so they can be grouped, combined with other engines on your report. So let's imagine you have one report to implement, and one line of this report is not supported by the standard tools Odoo provides. Just one line. All the rest you can do it, but that line, it's impossible. Well, for that, you could just write a custom engine just for this line, actually. And if you do that, you can use the regular engines everywhere else, so it's super convenient. And of course, you will be able to aggregate the amounts coming from this custom engine with other lines with just a regular aggregation expression as usual. So again, very powerful. So why do we need the dynamic lines generator then, if there is something so much better next to it? Well, actually, because this allows doing a little less things than the dynamic lines generator. So we keep both, because sometimes there is no choice. You need to use a dynamic lines generator. But my advice would really be, if you can use a custom engine, please use a custom engine. That being said, we talked a lot about the computation of the report, but is it all we need? Actually, I don't think so. And you might feel the next point coming, because I'm putting holes everywhere on my slide, so something's definitely fishy. Actually, for Odoo 17, we rewrote the entire JavaScript code of our reporting framework in OL, actually. So very quickly, for those not familiar with OL, in OL, everything that is displayed on screen is a component, all right? A component is basically a JavaScript class and a QWeb template, and they communicate to magically generate the HTML. If you want some more complete explanation, there are talks about that. I recommend you have a look at them, because my explanation is not enough. But still, that's how it works, basically. And so we took advantage of this refactoring we did to provide a lot of additional ways of customizing what's going on with the JavaScript and with the generation, well, the rendering, globally speaking, of the report. So let's have a look. The first thing would be, OK, I'm fine with the JavaScript code running on my report, but I would like the template to be slightly different. So the JavaScript logic is not my problem. I like it like that. But I want the template to be different, because I would like, for example, to swap two elements within the HTML. Well, how can I do that exactly? Well, very simply, there is that function, so get custom display config. Sounds like something that could be on the custom handler, right? Well, it's actually one more hook of the custom handlers. I just didn't want it to talk about it before now, to avoid spoiling you about that. But so that's one more hook. And this hook basically returns a dictionary with the configuration you want to do about your custom display. So here, if I just want to replace the template on one of my components, it's simple. I just give the templates key within my custom display config, and I say, OK, account report filters component is going to call this template I provide instead of the standard one. And that's it. Just doing that will change the template. You can do the same things to change components. So using the components key, you can say, OK, this component will use instead this other component. Often it will be a version, well, like a an extension of the original standard component with additional features on top of it, but it could be a totally different one. So it's your go. You do what you want with that. And of course, the last thing you can do with the custom display config is just to change the style of the report. So there is this key that you can put into it. It's the CSS custom class. Well, what is that? Simply, you give it the name of CSS class of your own. So it needs to be unique, of course. So it's like defining a new CSS class. You do that, you write some style sheet targeting that. So actually, you know that this class is going to be used at the root of the HTML rendered for the report, together with the account report class. Knowing that, you're able to write your style sheet to change anything in the style of the report. And all you need to do then is just to link the style sheet within the assets of the module, and that's it. Your report will have brand new appearance. So pretty powerful again. But you know, is it yet enough? Don't we need anything else? Because actually, I think we do. You can also want to customize the PDF export and the layout of the PDF export. Actually, if you paid attention to what I was saying, and if you know your OOL a little bit, you might be like, but wait, because the template used in Odoo 16 to render the report or to print it to a PDF is the same one. So it's rendered server-side for both user interface and the PDF export. And well, how can this work now? Because all is done client-side, so the QWeb template is evaluated by JavaScript. And on the other hand, I have the PDF export that needs to be done server-side since we're calling WKHTML to PDF. How can this work? Well, actually, we just split the templates. So there is now one template, well, a set of templates for the PDF export and a set of templates for the UI. And doing that allows customizing just the UI or just the PDF without falling in the whole mess that it was before if you wanted to do that. So how do you do that? Well, simply, again, the get custom display config function, you override the PDF export key, and that key, overriding that key, you can just say, okay, this template on the standard PDF export is going to be replaced by this other template of mine. Very simply. And of course, like for the UI, you can customize the style. So you define a class name in the custom handler, just like for the UI. You create a style sheet of your own, just like for the UI. And the only thing is that this style sheet needs to go in a different asset key in the manifest. And basically, that is it. So with all that, you're able to customize the appearance of your PDF. So that will be it for me today. I know I went very quickly on everything, but hey, so you have the ability to ask questions. So I don't know if you have time now for questions, because we started pretty late. But anyway, I will be available afterwards in the accounting booth in Hall 7 if you have things to ask. So feel free to come say hello there. See you then, and thank you for your attention. So the question is, do we have time for Q&A or not? Can someone tell me? No one is telling me. OK, I guess we don't. Anyway, thank you.
Well, in my opinion, it's likely because you are considering the switch to a new accounting software. Are you already using Odoo for sales and invoicing and are now willing to switch your full accounting to Odoo? Or maybe you are an accountant with reservations about transitioning to Odoo's accounting app. Then you are at the right place. Hello everyone, my name is Colleen and I'm a business analyst at Odoo. Today, I'm going to show you how Odoo's power and versatility can be your greatest ally when making the switch to a new accounting software. You will leave this talk with tips and tricks to make this switch in just a snap. To help illustrate this process, I would like to introduce you to Emily's company. Emily started to use Odoo 1 year ago initially to manage her sales and issue invoicing. Let's jump directly in the database of Emily. So here we are on her database. The sales and invoicing application are currently installed. In this invoicing application, we can see that she already issued a lot of invoices over the past year. Every time she has a new sales, she goes in the sales application and creates a new quotation. Today, Shopinet, a small local shop in her village, called because they are willing a replenishment of some product they are selling in their shop. They are willing to buy smashed potatoes, meatballs,